everyone. Welcome to MetalNet. I have another special guest for you today, David Fishof, who has been a sports agent, a producer, a promoter, an author. He has done absolutely everything. But what I know him best for is being the creator of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, and we're going to talk about that today. Hi, David. How are you doing?
Doing great, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, thank you for coming on. So we're going to talk a lot because there's a lot going on with Rock Camp. I mean, you've just built this up so much over the last 20 plus years. So we're going to talk a lot about all that's going on. But first of all, I want to say congratulations for the Rock Camp film, Rock Camp the film, it's called. I've seen it twice.
Wow.
I think it's fantastic. I highly encourage everybody to watch it. And I just wanted to know, we'll talk about it further, but how do you feel about it having just come out?
I was scared in the beginning. But when Jeff Rowe, a dear friend of mine who was a VH1 for many years at NBC, he approached me and he said, David, you have to make this into a documentary and really tell the story. And what motivated me was how many times you go to a film and you watch a trailer and then you watch the film and you're so disappointed that you spent 2 hours watching a film or an hour and a half, but the trailer got you into it. Well, Rock Camp has always been the biggest issue with Rock Camp is I cannot make a trailer as good as the film. It's the opposite. And I just said, if we can make this film, if you make this film right, then it can really show people what it's like. In a 30-second trailer, a 2-minute trailer, or a 3-minute press piece, you can't really tell the magic of this camp and what happens when you enter the door of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. So I'm very excited about the film and excited because it really shows the truth of what it is and the magic. And what I love the most is that it's not only life-changing for the people who attend, but for the rockers who attend too.
Yeah, I think that's what really got me because like you said, you have this idea of what Rock Camp is, right? We all have this fantasy of what we think it is, what we want it to be, what we're afraid it might not be, all of that in between. This is the first time where I really I was like, I get it now. I know exactly what's going to happen in terms of emotions. I might not know every minute of the day, although I will say your website is very thorough. Like if you want to go down there and see exactly, like a sample of something that happens it was really fantastic. So I highly encourage people who want to take their curiosity a little bit further to go to your website, rockcamp.com, and check that out. But in terms of the emotion and what people get from it on a much deeper level and why people choose to do it. For some people, once in a lifetime dream fulfilled. And for other people, every single year, it's like, gotta come back.
To me, Rock Camp is a process. While you think you're coming there to jam with your heroes, which you are, to me, it's a life-changing process that you get to come. Yes, you get to jam with the heroes. You get to shed so many years of your life because you finally climbed that mountain, as Gene Simmons says in the film, to get to that point where you can share, your moments with Roger Daltrey or with Joe Perry or with Gene or with Paul or Sammy Hagar, so many of these rock stars. And you realize that they put their pants on the same way you put yours on. They just have worked so hard to get where they've gotten. And so that to me is just incredible that you can get this experience, a life-changing experience. Yes, I don't play an instrument, but each camp just gives me more growth because I learned from these campers.
One thing that I thought was really sweet that I feel like that was the sentiment that all the musicians gave, musicians meaning the rock stars, gave was that, yeah, you might be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it is that you are in your day life, but really you're a musician first. And that's what you do to pay your bills. And I really thought that was special because these are people who are literal legends. These aren't just great musicians. These are people we've worshiped who've been around 30, 40, 50 years. And they're giving the acknowledgement of, no, you're a musician too. Whether you're a beginner, advanced, you're a musician. And that's what we do when we're doing it together.
One of my favorite moments at Rock Camp is the Q&As which led to our master classes that you were alluding to before. Joe Perry, after he jammed with these 14 bands, I turned to him and said, Joe, would you mind doing a Q&A? And he said, no, that's my favorite part. I want to talk to everybody. And we're at Foxwoods, and I remember people were raising their hands because he said to somebody, what do you do? And, his first time at Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, he wanted to know what these people do. And the gentleman stands up and says, I'm a doctor, and on weekends, I play the guitar. And Joe turned to me and said, he said, no, you're a guitarist first. He says, you do that medical crap to pay for your guitars. And like, wow, the guy said, yeah, that's me. And the whole room went, yeah, that's me. I'm a musician first. And I remember calling my brother who's a drummer, and he's a rabbi in Boca Raton. And I said, Joey, I said, his whole life, I said, you know what Joe Perry just said? And he said, yeah, I would rather be a full-time drummer. So, I got to say that if you're a musician, now, honest to God, I'm going to get my scooter fixed, as you see in the film. Mm-hmm. And I walk into Ducati Motors, and I wanted to put some mirrors in. This was on Friday. And the guy's, he's looking at me, and he's fixing my scooter, and he puts these great mirrors in, and then I'm waiting there to pay my bill, and he's looking at me back and looking at me. And I guess he probably Googled my name because he recognized it. And he said, you're in the music business. I said, yeah. He says, I'm a drummer, and I'm from South America, and I see what you do. And I said, yeah. I said, and he says, I'm really a drummer. I do this mechanical stuff. And I said, wow, that's it. You get it. He's a drummer.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I love that about people. And same thing with vocalists and all talented people.
Yeah. No, it was just nice to hear it from Joe Perry, though, right? Because
it was so beautiful to hear it from Joe, and so motivational and so honest. He's just such a great guy, an honest person.
Yeah, I love it. So speaking of master classes, so I've known of rock camps forever, just like everybody else. We all thought we knew what they were. Now we have a bird's eye view into what's happening. So COVID happens almost exactly a year ago. It started to affect us. We were asked to socially distance. Those of us who were able to work from home was doing that. And I would say a couple months later, so we're going from March to for me, it was maybe July. But a couple months later, you guys put something on your calendar with Marty Friedman that was like a free masterclass. And then a month later, I want to say you had like 24 of them. Boom, just like that. And shortly after, I started getting wind of this, and I signed up for one with Eddie Trunk. And there's a little bit of a story behind that. But my first question for you is, did you just magically put this all together in like 2 months? Or was this something that just timed out nicely for you, and it was something that you already had in the works? Because they could not have started these master classes on Zoom at a better time.
So I've been, one of my frustrations at Rock Camp is once camp ends, I wanted to find a way to connect with people. And, I give them this amazing experience, and then I create another camp. But in between, I wanted to find a way to connect. So one of the ideas I had was to do lessons online. I had to find something, and I looked into that. So I've been looking in for the past year of, how to what to do. And the lessons, my problem with the lessons were that there was a timing issue. Someone's going to miss a lesson, a rocker's going to miss a lesson. So then I came up with the idea of, one of the highlights of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp to come is to do these Q&As and these master classes where you get to talk to these rock stars and these producers and these songwriters about, careers, questions you want to ask them. And the great thing is they're not promoting an album. They're not promoting a tour. They're just giving you the knowledge that got them to where they are. And so I approached Mark Farner from Grand Funk and Felix Cavallari. I said, hey, would you guys mind doing a master class? I'll charge for it. I'll split the money with you. And I just really want to give people the knowledge that we share Rock Camp. And now during COVID, so many people just wanted to touch base and talk to these people. And the Rockers had nowhere to go. I remember, we advertised 60 minutes. Alice Cooper stayed on for 2 hours, and we said, is it enough? And he said, I got nowhere to go. And then Roger Daltrey did it. And then Joe Elliott from Styx, and Marty Friedman did it twice from Japan. How brilliant these musicians were. First of all, Britt Lightning, who hosted them, she did a fabulous job. I mean, she does a great job because she wants to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered. And she really has the patience to really give everybody. And number two, when the class would end, I called Britt and I said, wow, that was amazing. I learned this, I learned that. And I couldn't believe it. During COVID, in the heat of COVID, we're getting motivated by these artists, and they were giving off such amazing information. I mean, even Alice Cooper, talking about the key to this career. Everyone had questions. You can ask Alice, what's the key? And Alice said, it's about the music. It's about the song. Write that song. I don't care how long you have to spend it. It's about the song. And, the information, one thing they all had, the common denominator was they had passion. They all had passion in what they do. So they had a decision to make. And these are my campers. They were in high school, they were in college, and they had a decision. They can go for their career, or they had to go find a regular job because, someone got pregnant, they got married, they had kids, they had a parent telling them what to do. These rockers, they went for their dreams. And while, most people have to go, have to get the regular job. So they're authentic, and you can learn from their authenticity, why they're so authentic, and they got their dreams.
When I've been to 6 of them.
Wow.
Actually, yeah, 6 of them. And I've been to actually 2 of them twice, Eddie Trunk twice and Neil Giraldo twice.
Wow.
Rudy Scarzo and Desmond Child. So I really
you did. I mean, they were all brilliant. They're all brilliant.
Amazing. Yeah. And it's nice because it is sort of the Q&A where everybody can ask their question. And it's what's really nice is that sometimes other people ask some of your other questions. So it's not like you're only getting one question answered.
Great hang. It's not Cameo where you get a quick 1 minute hi, it's not a meet and greet, you never get access to these artists like this. You talk to Roger Dolce for an hour and a half and hear him talk about his career and his life and again, he's not pushing an album, not pushing his books. Just give me the real stuff.
Yeah. And for me, it was the first one was especially special because I didn't realize, and you have to know I'm a huge Vixen fan. I've interviewed 3 members of Vixen so far, and the 4th one has promised me that she talked to me as well. So I come in and I'm ready for Eddie Trunk. And to be honest with you, I was like, this is either the best $100 I've ever spent or the worst, or I just threw $100 out the window, but at least I'll meet Eddie Trunk. And so I get into the room and I see this girl who looks a lot like Britt Lightning. And I realize it's Britt Lightning. So I'm already happy. I'm right. Like $100, check, good, willing to do that again. And what I really loved is, like you were saying, it was pretty much supposed to be, I think, an hour.
Right.
An hour-long masterclass. And we were there for 2 solid hours. And Eddie he talked a little bit about himself, but he really let us, I think, lead the questions and ask what we wanted. And that group was a really tight group of basically broadcasting people. So people who
he wanted to share his
legit,
his real honest answers. He was so authentic and so real. And it was like taking off the mask of every one of these artists and say, give me the real deal. Give me the real deal. And that's what they were about. And, we've done over 150, 160 of these classes, and people love them. And it's been a lot of fun. And Britt has been sensational.
She's a phenomenal host. And what I will say about every single person whose class I've taken, and I've taken, guitarist bass. I mean, I've kind of taken everything, right? Sure. They've all found a way to be super honest, especially the East Coasters like Eddie Trunk, because we're kind of known for that. Right. Super honest and tell you a little bit more than even what you asked, because you might not know to ask it, but really still found a way to be very positive. So it's not like you can have whatever you want just because you want it, but it was sort of you can do it, but here's what you need to know.
Do you know how many people each one of these folks have influenced? I mean, it's incredible. Over the years, they've been such motivating factors. And there's a reason, because they do give you that extra step and they do want to share. Listen, there's no reason anyone who's done a masterclass, whether it's Neil Giraldo or on down, they've reached the epitome. They've reached a success. They want to share it. We all want to give back. I mean, part of Rock Camp to me was, the business has been very good to me. I represented a Beatle. I produced his tours. I represented professional athletes. I mean, I really had that opportunity to work with some amazing musicians and amazing artists and athletes. Now it was time to give back. I asked Jeff Beck when he came to Rock Camp, I said, so you came here, what made you come? And he said, I felt like the business has been good to me. I wanted to give back.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it's clear. I mean, it's clear when you go in there, they're not doing it for the money. Some of these guys don't
even deal with artists like that. You know what? I only deal with artists like that. I've had a few that have just done it for the money and they'll go nameless. But most of them, they you have to pay them big money to get them there.
No, of course.
When they leave, they realize that they had such a great experience, because everyone's got an agent, a manager, a lawyer, and accountants, and they have overheads too. So I respect it, and why not, But in the end, they they're staying there. Hey, Nick Mason is the richest musician out there. Okay, there's no one bigger. I think he's one of the most wealthiest musicians. He owns car dealers. Nick stayed at camp. I asked him to come for 2 hours. He stayed for 4 days. And then he wrote an article, called me up. Do you mind if I write about this in GQ? It's sensational.
Wow.
And he just, he said, I never get a chance to play a Monkey song with Mickey Dolenz. And didn't make the film, but there's an item in the film about that unfortunately made the cut the corner cutting room, and it said that someone said he needs a drummer, and Nick said, I'll be the drummer in the band. So, Slash, he stayed for 12 hours. He was the hardest thing you ever had to work. Yeah. So, the sincerity of these artists that do come, incredible.
So there's one other thing I wanted to mention of the master classes for everybody at home. First of all, they are priced, I think they're still priced, to participate for anywhere from 50 to generally 100, 150, but there's some that are charity ones that may be a little bit more money.
The artists, the big artists, they're giving it, they've done it to raise the money. Styx gave the money to their crew, and Roger Dolce only does it for Teenage Cancer America. Alice and Scorpions, all to give to their crew or their charity. Alice has a charity.
Yeah, which I thought was wonderful. But I had another experience, which was for the Desmond Child, which is I just wanted to be in the room. I just wanted to hear what he had to say. So I did, I don't know what you're calling it, but I did basically the participant one, which is like $25-ish. This was, I think, maybe 75 because it was 3 days, but 4 hours a day for 3 days. Desmond Child, specific feedback.
I am trying to get him back. I thought Desmond Child was brilliant.
Phenomenal.
Okay. I tried to get him to come to Rock Camp for so many years. I could never get him to come. And I did not miss a word that he said. And the way he broke down songs. And I remember the line, one of my favorite lines was someone wrote a love song, and she said, I found love from Nashville to the Alamo. And he said, lady, we lost the Alamo. His sense of humor. What a talented gentleman he is.
And he's just, and he was really, he gave them advice because he'd be like, you got some
incredible advice.
Like he would call them out if he had something he needed, in a loving way, but man, he gave them feedback.
Let me tell you something. Those are my favorite artists who really tell you the truth and not afraid. And, I said I'll never forget, my son was drumming and Roger Dolce looked at him and said, Josh, you're at camp once. And my son Josh, a big Who fan, and he says, you're messing that up and things like that. I said, Roger, I'm going to have to pay so much therapy. Relax. and I said, these people, when you say something, they take it to heart.
Totally.
And he didn't realize it, but I love when they're honest and they tell it. And another guy who comes to camp and he's also brilliant is Gene Simmons. You would think that a guy comes to camp, he's Gene Simmons, and he walks into a room and they turn to him and said, can we play deuce? And he'll turn to them and say, hold on, give me your guitar. We're going to write a song together. And he spends hours writing a song with these people. He says, let me teach you how to write a song. And then afterwards, he says, I want to hear the songs that you guys written. And, the sincerity of Gene to do this is really unbelievable. So what I love most about the film is that you really get to see a rock star in a different environment.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone ever showed that about the generosity. And then there's people who won't do my camp because they just don't want to, they just don't have the heart and soul to do it.
Well, it's probably a blessing in disguise when they say no, right?
Yes,
like at first you're probably like, oh man, and then afterwards you're probably like, oh, that kind of worked out.
Yeah, and I've had people say, I want to come, I want to be a counselor, and then they've come and they haven't been, they really haven't done a great job, and I had to let them go. And the big names, I just say, this doesn't fit for you, and while one gentleman, I'm going to go nameless because I don't want to hurt him. I love him dearly, and he said, I really want to do this camp. I want to be a counselor, and then he came, and he was so difficult, and I had to bring in somebody to help him. And then the London Times came to the next camp, and the guy asked me, those British, that UK press, they said, who was your worst counselor? And I said, this guy was my worst counselor, XXX, And the guy said to me, made all the headlines. He said, "Why did you tell everybody that?" I said, "Because you were, but it's not meant for you." And I don't really like to say that about people, but you got to have patience if you're a rock star, and you got to, really have something to give to these people and want to give back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is about the people coming to learn and to bond, and
we all have that conversation. I have a meeting beforehand with all the campers and with all the rock stars. And and the way the meeting goes is, listen, this is about the campers. They are coming to get an experience, and we all have to leave our egos at the door, and we want to give them the experience. We want to change their lives, and we have the ability to change their lives. So let's do it.
Yeah. So it sounds like, since you had wanted to create this experience for people, that these are not going away once social distancing is out of our lives. You're going to keep.
I'm ready. I'm heading to Florida. I'm heading to Florida next week, and I'm going to try to, I have a location down there, and I'm getting edgy and antsy myself. I got to be honest. I'm thinking the end of COVID is coming, and I'm getting antsy because I got to start putting on camps, and it's a lot of work to do a camp, but it's so worth the feeling of doing the camp, because you're changing 80 people's lives at each camp.
Right. So let's talk about the camps. And I want to start with, it's a story I've heard you tell before, and I feel like it's deeply linked to the reason that rock and roll fantasy camps exist. And that's your experience in the Catskills as a young person with your family. So I actually have never been to the Catskills, but the way you describe it, or the way I've heard you describe it, is that it sounded like it used to be almost like a cruise ship that didn't go anywhere. Like you went, you got fed a lot, you got entertained.
Free meals. You're right. That's a great way to describe it. It's a cruise ship that doesn't go anywhere except you're on the land the whole entire time. The meals are the same as a cruise ship. They feed you like crazy, nonstop. There are games played all day. At night there's entertainment. And I started as a waiter, and then I went to booking the comedians and singers up there, and those entertainers turned out to be some of the greatest comedians, because they had to entertain an audience that stuffed themselves for 3 major meals a day. And at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, the audience sat back and said, "Okay, entertain me. I dare you to make me laugh. I dare you to make me laugh." And they had to work hard, these comedians. And they went on to be, from the Myron Cohens to Milton Berle's to Jack Carter's to Jan Murray's, all these amazing comedians. Don Rickles played up there. And I mean, just so many had to entertain those audiences there. And they went on to greatness from there. So the Catskills was a great I would say a great minor leagues for me. It was a great place to learn how to book, how to sell your artists. And I learned a lot up there.
So were these the folks that you were booking, or the folks that you were seeing playing when you were visiting there as a kid or waitering as a kid, were they up and coming? Like they weren't who they eventually would become, or were they already known entities?
Well, they were known in the Catskills because you had to know how to entertain the audience. You couldn't bomb up there. Now, there are some comics who, again, I don't know their names, but some would go up there and try to entertain the audiences, and they couldn't do it because it's a certain way to entertain those audiences, especially at 10:30 at night. You got to make them laugh, or by the time you went on stage, it was 11 because the singer usually opened. But the ones who did very well up there went on to to greatness and success, and I think that it was a great, and they worked a lot because the timing is very important with comics. It was a great way to really practice your craft, and so the Catskills was great. Even for me as an agent, I had to learn to sell. Why book my comic over someone else's comic, and why book my singer over someone else's singer. So you really learned a lot, on how to deal up there.
I heard you describe that experience at the Catskills as like camp for grown-ups.
Yes.
Did it occur to you at the time, or was that
it's in the film? That's what Roxie goes in the Concord. But basically, if you really want to know what the Catskills, one of my favorite movies was Dirty Dancing, and I was able to turn that into a live tour. Dirty Dancing really was a great film to show you what the Catskills were like. And the lady who wrote it, Eleanor Bergstein, was a dance instructor up there at Grossinger's Hotel. So she tells a beautiful story.
Yeah. So you had this experience of sort of seeing what camp could be like for grown-ups, right? Great food, entertainment, the whole bit. And then you became a sports agent. You've worked with, like you had said earlier, Ringo Starr, the Monkees. You had done all kinds of things musically and sports wise. And at some point in 1997, you decided that you wanted to do this thing that we now know as Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. So what was sort of that shift from like being on the road with artists and before that booking sports figures to wanting to create this brand that you've been working with for 20 plus years?
I got married again, and I felt that it was the time for me to stay home and stay off the road. Mm-hmm. And I felt that the camp could accommodate that way of life for me. People would come to me, they'd come to LA or they'd come to New York, and I would create the camp. And I had been on the road a lot, as because when you manage artists, you have to be out there with them, and ball players, you have to travel to their cities. And I just had enough of traveling, and we had a baby, and then another baby, and then I just said, I just couldn't. If I saw Detroit one more time or Philly one more time for 5 minutes, I just said, I've been to every shopping mall in the United States, and when you're in the management part, or you're the producing part, or the agent part, it's not like you're the artist where you're going from audience to audience and they're screaming your name and you're excited, and you get that excitement coming off that stage and the excitement of the audience. So. For me, it was a job, and I had to be there because, when my artist was in Kansas City, that's where my business is. So that's really took me, to wanting to do the camp and do it in a place that people come to me, stay in the music business. Little did I know it was going to be 2008, 2009, and I'm going to go into this, this turn of our economy. But I worked on it, and I love it, and I think what's been fun for me is just to see that you're really changing people's lives every day. And while it's not as profitable as touring and managing artists, you know what? Emotionally, it's emotionally and for yourself, you just feel so much better giving than receiving. And the campers really, they give me a lot of they give me a lot of great feedback on how their lives have changed.
Oh, that's wonderful. So in the early years, when you're first putting this together, did you call up like 3 or 4 musicians and figure that they could cover how many people? Was it like 20 people or?
No, I did my first camp while I was still touring with Ringo, and I was off that, so I called everybody I knew. I called Clarence Clemens and Levon. Levon did my camp eventually, but I did it down in Florida, and I did it with Clarence and Nils Lofgren, and I remember Mike Love of the Beach Boys. I reached out to him, and Mark Farner from Grand Funk, and Phil's Cavallari. I just reached out to anybody I knew, and I said, I have this idea. Would you consider coming? And they thought, yeah, no, I'll come. And then I had a gentleman who said I wanted to back it, and little did he realize how hard it was going to be. It sounds like a great idea. It was easy to get 50 people from the press to come and observe it and see it. But we only had like 20 people. It was really a disaster financially, but the 50 press people just loved it, and they wrote all amazing stories. So we decided not to do it again. And then I was at my Polestar convention. A Polestar convention in our industry is a convention where all the promoters go, managers, agents, and it's where we all get together once a year to discuss the live music industry. And they were playing a game, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, with Tommy Lee, Tommy Shaw, and I keep forgetting who the other one was, Sammy Hagar. And one of the questions they asked was, Who Wants a Millionaire? Who created Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp? David Bowie, David Byrne, David Fishof. And Sammy Hagar yelled out, David Fishof. And I said, wow, these guys remember. Wow, I cannot believe they remember what I'm doing. And I think Bon Jovi was in the room. He was sitting in the back of the bar, and he saw me. Fishof, they're talking about you. And we knew each other through Phil Simms of the Giants because he was a major sports fan. And so I said to myself, wow, these people have talked about it. I'm going to try this one more time. Mm-hmm. And then I got contacted by Eric Sherman, who was running VH1 Classic at the time. And he said, we'll back you and we'll help promote this thing. And, why don't you do it? We think it's a cool idea. And so I called up George Thorogood, and I called up, I had met Brett Michaels, and I just kept calling as many people I could. And, I got turned down, many artists. I'm not working with amateurs. But these guys came through, and and they said that they would help me, and they would show up. They thought it was a cool idea, and I did my next camp, and lo and behold, it got some great publicity. Then I decided I'm going to take it on the next level, and I did one in New York, and I'll never forget. Ron Delson, the promoter, said, "Fishof, this is a great idea. Get the big names and pay them." So I flew over to England, and I'm going to get the biggest name I know is Roger Daltrey. Mm-hmm. And I went to talk to Roger about doing a camp, and he didn't understand what it was. You know, he never went to the camp in the Catskills, you know, like I did. He never went to camp. And he said, you know, he thought the word camp the whole night. He's saying, show camp, do a camp. He didn't understand the word campy in England. You know, it's just something, it's just, you know, you should get the Thompson twins, the Village People. They're campy, you know, they're campy artists. And I said, no, Roger, let me explain this to you. If you had someone that you wanted to always play with, let's say there was an artist, who would it be? He said, Levon Helm. If I could meet Levon Helm and jam with him, just want to meet him, that would be my idol. And to meet. And I said, okay, I'll make a deal with you. I'll get you Levon Helm. And he said, you get me Levon Helm, I'll do your camp for you. And I'll never forget, I don't know why I said this to him, but I said, you know, Levon really doesn't have a lot of money, and, you know, he's really going through tough times. He says, whatever you want to give me, give it to him. I want to meet him. So, I mean, I love Roger's enthusiasm. And I called Levon up, who had done the Ringo tour. And as you'll see in the film, he plays a great joke. Him and Joe Walsh played a great joke on me. And he said, David, I'll be there. Of course, whatever you need. And Levon came, and he came to meet Roger. And it was really so beautiful. And then Roger said, you know, this is really cool. You know, he saw these people working hard. And he says, I want to jam with them. Where are they working? I said, well, they're playing the Bottom Line. And on Sunday night, he says, I'll be there. And he stayed. And not only this camp happened because of Roger Daltrey, period. You know, once he decided to do it, the press came out, the publicity came out, and he really helped me the most. And he helped me get artists, and he cared for it, and he showed a lot of interest in it. And, you know, it hasn't been an easy business, but I think that, you know, went through that economic turn. And then you also have the issue of, you know, people are scared to come, you know. I mean, if I tell you can jam with Jeff Beck, I'm not going to jam with Jeff Beck, you know. I get it, too, because someone invited me once to Michael Jordan fantasy camp. And I said, no, I'm not going to Michael Jordan fantasy camp, and I love basketball. I mean, I'm a Celtic crazy, you know.
You're from here. Part of your life from Brockton, Massachusetts.
I love the Celtics. And I said, I'm not going to play with Michael Jordan. You know, I'm not going to make a fool out of myself, even 3-on-3 with guys. So I get it, the fear factor people have.
Yeah. It's like you want it, but you don't want it.
Right.
You want it in your fantasy, but not in the reality.
Once they come, they keep wanting to come back for that experience. And it motivates people to get better and better and better. And, you know, one of the excitements I had was Wick Ruspeck of the Celtics, the owner. His brother or someone sent him to rock camp as a gift for his birthday, and no, because the Celtics won, and he's a drummer, a great drummer too. He's really good, and he came to camp, and I was honored. That was my fantasy. And he came to my camp, and then the next camp, Sandy Koufax showed up, another one of my heroes. So, you know, I've gotten to meet my heroes too.
That's amazing. So what's interesting about this camp, though, is unlike other, and it's different than these other programs, but I've seen other music programs, right? Where if you're like a great bass player, a great drummer, you sign up, you go for X amount of time, whether it's a weekend or whatever, you have to audition, you have to get in, you know, that kind of thing. And what's really interesting about rock camp is that you accept people of every level. So you could be a beginner, you could be intermediate, and you could be really good. What gave you faith that would work for you guys to have people, like we're talking about the you know, everyone's idols, the masters of the thing, working with people who are really good would be one thing, but to work with people who are in the beginning phases of their musical life, what gave you faith that could even work?
That's a great question. You know, Teddy Andreatis, who played keyboards for Guns N' Roses, and Spike Edney, another keyboardist for Queen. He's currently in Queen. He's been there for 25, 30 years. You know, those guys, when they come to camp, they'll tell me, give me the worst band, David. I can make them better. They're challenged by taking the worst, you know, and not worst, the beginners. Give me the beginners. And then you have someone like Alan White from Yes, who's a musical, from Yes. And Yes music is very difficult. And he's a really a musician's musician, and he wants the best guys. So it really depends on the counselors, but many of the counselors, they all have their favorites. And it's so amazing because each one of these counselors, I tell them before camp, again, I'm a Boston fan and I'm a huge Bill Belichick fan, but I tell them, all you guys, you're like Bill Belichick. I mean, here's a guy who every year was winning and he gets the same draft picks as everybody else. And I said, your job is like the coach, NFL football coach. He wins because he knows how to put all the parts together, and I think that's what your job is as a coach or as a producer of this band. Your object is to put all these musicians together and make them great. And it's incredible that the talent that I've seen that Teddy has done, and I've seen that and Spike, they've taken, the beginner bands and they've turned them into amazing bands because let's say there's two drummers in a group and one can do fills, all the fills, or one can just hold a steady beat. Then they work with what they have and they really put all the parts together. So I love taking beginners because, they're going to go further. I love taking advanced people because while they think they're advanced, they're really not as advanced as they think they are.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. You can play an instrument every day. You can play every weekend in 3-4 hours. But these pros, you take a Bruce Kulick or you take a Rudy Sarzo, they play 4 hours a day. Vinny Appice plays 4 hours a day. They have to keep their chops up and they have to be so perfected. And, like a guy like Peter Frampton or Joe Walsh told me he would play 4 or 5 hours a day. So, you can't just pick the guitar up on a weekend and play like these people. Just like you can't throw a football like Tom Brady. And Tom Brady works out every day and that's what he does. So these musicians are really one step higher than most people. And while you think it's easy, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not. So the camp, when you go in person, it's about 3 to 5 days. Because I think when I was online,
it's 4 days. It's 4 days.
Okay.
5, but with 4 days, and you have to perform 2 live performances. Wow, you're going to be on stage, the Whiskey a Go-Go. You're going to be on stage at a House of Blues, and you're going to be playing in front of a live audience. You're going to be recording. Many people have a recording package, and you might be in Capitol Records. So you're going to be somewhere in a major studio with a major record producer, recording, writing. You're going to take master classes. You're going to go to jam rooms where, you want to do blues, you can do blues. You want to do metal, you can do metal. We have all different kinds of that. And then you're going to have to, jam with a superstar, whether it was Joe Perry or Vince Neil or Roger Daltrey. So, we're going to put you through a challenge, but you're not going to be able to get that anywhere. And that challenge, and it's not a layup. It is a little work, and you're going to prepare for it. Really, the preparation starts before you come to camp. And, you're given a list of songs, and many people hire teachers to get them prepared. And then you take it with you afterwards. You walk away and you can, I've seen so many incredible experiences that people get, whether they're writing songs, they're joining bands, they're even running their businesses better because, when you're a musician, the key I've learned at camp, and I'm not a musician, is you got to learn to listen. And I can't tell you how many executives have come to me and said, I've taken what I've learned at this camp and I'm running my business better. Many women have said to me, my husband doesn't have road rage anymore. They found their happiness. They found their happiness at camp.
Yeah. All right. And then the camps, from what I've seen, because you have these wonderful cards that show like all the people who have been at previous camps. And it looks like you've done them in LA, Vegas.
London, Vegas, Nashville, Florida, wherever I can, find the artist, and I like to change it around. Eventually I'd like to take it on tour and do one night camp experiences, and so that people can perform for their families and friends, and so that they're going to go there. So there'll be different aspects of rock camp, but anywhere from 1 to 4 days.
Nice. And then so it sounds like you're starting to plan the next one again, because it feels like it might be sooner, coming.
Yeah, I was waiting for the Scorpions. We had scheduled a Scorpions camp in Vegas, and They were there doing their residency, and then we didn't put it on sale. They were going to do a cheap trick doing a Beatles camp in New York. Again, right before I didn't want to go on sale till I understood what COVID was. I don't want to hold anybody's money or anything like that. So I have and then Florida will open. So as soon as we're going to get ready to open these camps very soon.
Sounds good. And then when do you think shows will resume? Do you have a sense of what part of the calendar year that's going to happen?
I think shows are going to resume starting in June. I got a note today from Ticketmaster. A lot of concerts going to start, and the Hollywood Bowl is going to open in June. So I think people are predicting the summer. We'll see. But I'm hoping more like October is when I plan to start.
Do you think it'll be limited capacity for those first few months, or do you think they're going full steam?
I think it's going to have to be limited capacity, but I don't get how you're going to do a concert limited capacity. So I still don't understand it.
Yeah.
I know with me, I'm 80 people. I can keep social distancing. I can separate the rooms. So I think I'll be okay. But I think, the majority of these places, I don't know how they're going to do it. And, it's going to be each state by state.
Right. It just seems like financially, it doesn't feel like it makes sense for anybody to do it.
No.
The big scale ones anyway.
Yeah, but, again, I saw some big names advertised at the Hollywood Bowl. So I don't remember who they were, but I saw some young bands. So people are going to take a chance.
We'll figure it out together. Exactly. So I have a question for you, and this is more of a basic question. So you were a sports agent. And you always hear the terms agent and manager, and people tend to have two. What's the difference between an agent and a manager? And is it different between sports and music, or is it the same concept?
Okay. So for sports, basically you have an agent. An agent gets 3% of your contract, negotiates the contract, and then he does, he or she, many she's in the business now too, which is awesome. They handle marketing, and people pay anywhere from 15 to 20% from, marketing, appearances, commercials, endorsements. So it's usually an agent who does everything. But sometimes it's separated. Sometimes there's a specific person who does the contract, and then to do your marketing is a separate person. So that's sports. It usually has two different agents: my marketing agent, my contract agent. Mm-hmm. In the music industry, we have an artist has a manager. And the manager his job is to find you the agent, is to find you a press agent, to find you a business manager, to help you make a record deal, and to handle your public relations. Basically runs your entire career. The agent in the music business, his job is to secure gigs and to bring you offers. So they basically don't manage. They just go out and hustle your jobs, and they get 10%.
More of a booker.
Right. Okay. And I know in Los Angeles, and I think New York also, the law is a manager is not allowed to book a gig. So it's only an agent. And so many managers have been sued by their talent when they wanted to get out of contract, and they said, "Oh no, you book gigs and you're not allowed to," and right. It's not true, So that's why an artist needs to have an agent and a manager, and then they have a business manager who handles all the financial, and then they have a music attorney.
It sounds very expensive to be a musician.
An artist usually walks away. Well, if you want, this is the way I look at it: is most artists have to pay 10% to the agency, 50% to the management, 5% to the lawyer, 5% to the accountant, and then a PR firm. They'll end up with 50%. And then they have to pay their bands and their travel. So the artist lands up with, about probably like 25%, but he works all the time. And he's usually a big entity to support them. And everybody really earns their living because it's a lot of work, to manage a client. It's a lot of work to find these gigs and to negotiate them. And so it's, and then depending on how big you are in the industry, you can pay lesser commissions because, you don't have to pay the 10% to an agency if you're a big star, because you can get it up to 5%. So it's all negotiable. The best books out there to really understand the music business for all your listeners and would be Don Passman's book, Everything You Want to Know About the Music Business. Is an incredible book. He updates it all the time. He's the king of the book. It's the books of the business, really. And he manages, from Mariah Carey to Cher to all the great artists. And the other great source book I really found recently is Ari Helfand. he's written a book about the music industry, and it's basically for people who are just starting out or in middle, because he deals a lot with the social media. And
Mhm.
today there's a lot more opportunities to be able to tour and make a living in the music business. So Ari's book is really, really good.
Okay, and what was the name of the Ari book?
Ari's book is called, I have it right here. I don't want to get up. If you want me to get
Okay.
up.
All right.
But
Well, I'll get it from you and we'll put it down below.
Ari Helfand. Ari Helfand.
Ari Helfand. Okay, sounds good. And then what's one piece of advice that you would give, given what you've seen in your career as an agent, as a producer, as a promoter? What's the one piece of advice that you would give for somebody who wants to follow an impossible dream, wanting to be a musician or a sports person, something that is very few people can actually attain?
Well, it's different for both. Okay, to be an athlete, it's easy because you can compare your talent against other people. Just get on a basketball court and see if you can hit the baseball, or you have to go to high school and then play college ball, and then basically you get chosen. It's not your choice. The teams spend a lot of money on draft, on scouts and coaches, and So I think sports. I think you just have to go through that system. And then get chosen and just work as hard as you can. The entertainment business is a little different because the entertainment business, there's all different ways that people like different people to make it. And I think it's just being authentic and true to your music, believe in your music. Also prepare yourself that if you do get a record deal, that you have to be prepared for that sophomore record. I think the biggest problem is people work on that first record their entire life. They come up with those 12 amazing songs. The record gets released. It gets to be a hit. And now all of a sudden the label says, okay, I need that second record. And you go, da, da, da. I've thought of that first album my entire life. And
Right.
that second album, becomes, I can't produce what I did in the first album. So I think getting songs, writing that song, and like with Desmond Child, and learning really how to write a song and the success of songs and the common denominator of what makes a song. But I think every of the 160 master classes, every artist said the same thing. It's about that song. Mm-hmm. And if you can write that song and you can make that song a hit, and that song become a hit, then everything else will flow.
Yeah. Sounds great. So I highly encourage everybody to see Rock Camp the movie. It's fantastic. It's touching. There's just so much more there, and until you watch it, nobody can really explain it to you. Except
I love that you watched it twice.
I watched it twice. It's worth seeing for sure. I think regardless of what kind of music you like, but obviously if you're a rock fan or a metal fan, you're going to see the people that you've worshipped your whole life in it. As well as those characters.
And I wanted to leave you with this. I did the film. Again, I was told to stay out of the kitchen, let them bake it. But the reason I feel great about the film and wanted it is I wasn't just geared for musicians. It's geared to anybody and everybody who wants to do their dream. And these people did it through music. But if you want to write an app, or you want to write a book, or you want to, do a new business or create something or be an artist, I'm hoping this movie will motivate you and to see that you're able to do anything you want to do in life. And the only thing blocking you is fear. And so by going to the Rock Camp, these people got rid of their fears and they're able to get their goals.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I will tell you that after Eddie Trunk's class, I decided to start this show that night. And it's something I wanted to do my whole life, but I was waiting. And I said, there's no reason to wait tonight. And I literally started the night of Eddie's class. And
Sarah, that's why I'm here, because I wanted to support you. I remember your question, and I think it's important that I know you have the drive, and it's really why I'm here. And I wanted to give you my 2 cents and anything I could do to help you. So go for it. I think you deserve it. And you're worthy, as they say, go get your dream.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a real honor to talk to you, and I really appreciate you coming on. And keep doing those master classes, and obviously the rock camps, which are so important to people.
Go Boston!
Yay!